I don't remember what she looked like when we met. It's a strange thing to say, considering I've spent nearly a decade with her, but time can be a funny thing. It's not that I don't have any memories of her. It's more like I've created a hazy picture in my mind of what she used to be. Or maybe it's just that I've chosen to forget the more vivid details, like the way her smile used to light up a room or how her laughter was infectious. Now those memories feel distant, overshadowed by a gnawing suspicion that something was off. Her name is Emily. When we first got together, she was everything I thought I wanted. Smart, ambitious, with a sharp wit that could cut through the worst of days. We complemented each other well, or so I thought. But as the years rolled on, I felt a shift, a subtle change that gnawed at me. It started with little things. Her late nights at work, the occasional text that would draw a frown or a sigh, and those moments when she'd be lost in thought, staring out of the window as if she were miles away. I brushed it off for a while. After all, it was just life, right? Work stress, maybe. But deep down, I felt a creeping unease that I couldn't shake. The reality is that I didn't want to admit it, not to myself and certainly not to anyone else. But the signs were there. I just wasn't ready to see them. The day I discovered the truth felt like being slapped awake from a dream. I was working from home, a usual Tuesday, and Emily had mentioned she'd be late due to a team building event. I hadn't thought much of it. She was ambitious and driven, traits I admired. But as the hours ticked by and darkness settled in, my gut began to churn. I decided to grab her phone from the kitchen counter, something I had done before without much thought. That's when I saw the messages. Her coworker, Jason, was the first name that jumped out at me. The texts were flirty, bordering on suggestive. I could feel my heart race as I read through the exchange, each word cutting deeper than the last. "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe, just you and me." I felt like I was drowning in my own disbelief. How could she? How could this happen? I knew I should have confronted her right then and there, but I couldn't. I needed time to process, to gather my thoughts. So I took a walk. I paced through the neighborhood, replaying every moment I could remember, the late nights, the sudden changes in her demeanor, the way she'd occasionally glance at her phone, her expression shifting when she thought I wasn't looking. Each memory felt like a brick, constructing a wall of betrayal around me. When I finally returned home, the house felt different, colder. I waited anxiously for her to come home, each tick of the clock amplifying my anger and confusion. When she finally walked through the door, all smiles and laughter, I felt a mix of rage and sorrow. There she was, the Emily I remembered, and yet standing before me was a stranger. I confronted her, my voice trembling as I laid out the evidence like a damning indictment. The laughter faded from her face, replaced by a mask of surprise that quickly crumbled into something more defensive. "Really, Jason, you're going to believe those texts?" She snapped, her tone biting. "It's nothing, you're overreacting." I stood there bewildered and hurt, watching as she twisted the truth into a pretzel of lies and excuses. My emotions were a whirlwind: shock, anger, betrayal. Could it really be that easy for her to dismiss everything we had built? The pain felt like a physical blow, a punch to the gut. That night was a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. I kept replaying the confrontation in my mind, wishing I had said something different, wishing I had seen this coming. But more than that, I felt a chilling realization settling in. I couldn't trust the woman I loved anymore. As the sun rose the next day, I found myself at a crossroads, wrestling with a storm of emotions. I was devastated, but something inside me ignited. I knew I needed to come to terms with this betrayal. My heart was shattered, but I couldn't let it define me. The question was, what would I do next? Would I fight for my marriage, or would I decide to walk away? I was at a tipping point, and the road ahead was uncertain. The journey of healing and decision-making lay before me, and I wasn't sure which path to take. But I wouldn't let Emily's betrayal be the end of my story. The sun rose slowly, casting a soft glow through the blinds of our bedroom, but the light felt foreign in a space that had once been filled with warmth and love. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the night before. Emily had the audacity to sit across from me and spin her web of lies, and I'd been left sitting in the middle of it, paralyzed by disbelief. The anger I felt was like a low burn, simmering just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to erupt. I decided to take the day off work. I needed to gather my thoughts and figure out my next move. As I sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at a cup of coffee that had long gone cold, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that clung to me like a thick fog. I opened my laptop and started digging into her social media, into the lives of our friends, into anything that might give me insight or evidence. I needed to know how deep the betrayal went and how. Many lies I had been fed. Scrolling through Emily's Instagram, I felt sick. There were photos of her at work, laughing with her coworkers, and of course, there were a few with Jason. They appeared innocent enough, two colleagues at a bar after a long day, but I felt the weight of my suspicions bearing down on me. The smiles, the closeness, it all felt like a punch to the gut. I noticed comments from her coworkers praising their teamwork and how they were the best duo in the office. My stomach churned at the thought of what that really meant. After hours of dissecting every detail, I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time I wanted to take a different approach. I felt like a detective, piecing together clues, trying to unveil the truth. So I made a plan. I would gather as much evidence as possible and then take it to her, forcing her to face the reality of what she was doing. When Emily returned home that evening, I was ready. I had printed out the messages, screenshots of the flirty exchanges, and even a few of her more intimate social media posts that included Jason. I felt like I was holding the ultimate trump card. As she walked through the door, I could see the cheerful facade she wore cracking ever so slightly. "Hey babe, how was your day?" she asked, her voice light. "Sit down, Emily," I said, my tone firm. Her smile faltered and she immediately sensed the change in the atmosphere. She sat across from me, shifting nervously in her chair. "What's wrong?" I placed the printed evidence on the table between us. "Here, what's wrong?" I said, my voice steady, pointing at the text messages. "You can't deny this. You can't act like everything is fine between us when you're sending messages like this to Jason." Her face went pale, and for a moment the confident Emily I once knew disappeared. "Jason, really, you're going to believe those texts?" She was back to her defensive mode, ready to deflect. "They're just jokes. We have a playful rapport at work, that's all." A playful rapport. I shot back, anger bubbling up again. "You don't tell someone you can't wait to see them and call them babe if it's just a joke. This is some misunderstanding. This is you lying to me." Her eyes darted around, searching for a way out, a way to spin this. "You're being paranoid. I swear it's nothing. You know how guys are at the office. They joke around. You're taking this too seriously." Too seriously. I could feel my voice rising. "You're sending intimate messages to another man while I'm at home, and I'm taking it too seriously." For a moment, it looked like I'd hit her with the truth. But then she leaned back, crossing her arms defensively. "You just don't trust me, Jason. This is about you, not me." That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just about the affair, it was about the cracks in our relationship, the trust that had eroded over time. I felt pain and anger boiling together in a toxic mix, and as much as I wanted to lash out, I knew this wasn't the time for that. "I trusted you," I said quietly, the words heavy with emotion. "And you've completely shattered that trust. I don't even know who you are anymore." She paused, and for a brief moment I thought. I could see a flicker of remorse in her eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by her usual bravado. "You don't know what you're talking about. You're being ridiculous. I'm not going to entertain these accusations anymore." At that, I lost it. "Accusations? This is evidence, Emily. You can't twist the truth." I could see she was getting flustered and I was getting angry. It was a volatile mix. "Do you love him?" I asked, the question hanging in the air like a guillotine ready to drop. Her silence was deafening. It was the answer I didn't want to hear but feared was true. The realization hit me harder than a freight train. If she couldn't deny it, then this was no longer just a fight. This was the definitive moment that would change everything. I felt a rush of emotions, madness, sadness, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. But more than anything, I felt lost. I was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into an abyss, uncertain of my next move. Would I walk away from everything I had built, or would I fight to salvage the remnants of our marriage? The decision loomed over me, heavy and suffocating. I had to think clearly, but my heart was racing, and my mind was clouded with hurt. I needed to take a step back and consider the future, but how could I do that when the present felt so unbearably painful? The tension in the room was palpable. Emily and I were sitting across from each other, a chasm of hurt and betrayal widening with each second that passed. I had thrown down the gauntlet, placing all of my cards on the table, but the exchange had devolved into a circular argument that left me feeling even more unsettled. Her refusal to admit any wrongdoing was infuriating, yet part of me felt this strange sense of clarity. If she could lie so easily, perhaps it was time for me to embrace a different side of myself, the side that wouldn't just sit back and accept her version of our reality. "Look, Emily," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to fight, but you can't expect me to just ignore what's happening here. We're at a crossroads and I need you to be honest with me. Do you want to be with me or do you want to be with him?" Her expression shifted, and for a brief moment I thought I detected something resembling vulnerability, but she quickly masked it with a smirk. "You're being dramatic, Jason. You know I love you, but sometimes a little fun with friends is just that, fun. It doesn't mean I want to leave you. Can't you understand that?" I felt my hands clench into fists on the table. "Fun? Emily, this isn't just fun. You're having an affair. You're betraying me. You think it's just harmless banter, but it's a violation of the trust we built." With each word I spoke, I could see the cracks in her facade begin to show. Her confidence faltered, and for a split second I thought I might get through to her. But then she snapped back, her tone turning icy. "You're making a mountain out of a molehill. You really want to throw away everything we've built for a few flirty texts? That's ridiculous." "Ridiculous?" I echoed, incredulous. "If you think it's ridiculous to want fidelity in a marriage, then maybe." Further apart than I realized. "This isn't about throwing away our life together. This is about you being honest with yourself and me. You need to face what you've done." Her eyes narrowed, and I could see the anger building again. "You don't get to dictate how I feel or how I handle my friendships. You're acting like a jealous child." "Jealous? No, Emily, I'm heartbroken. You're betraying the vows we took, and you're trying to downplay it as if I'm overreacting. Is that really how you want to handle this?" My emotions were spiraling, and I could feel tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. Was this who we had become? A couple at war with each other, each unwilling to yield. The love that had once felt so solid now felt like sand slipping through my fingers. Finally, she stood up, crossing her arms as if to shield herself. "I don't have to sit here and listen to this. I'm not going to entertain this conversation anymore. I'm tired of being accused." "Accused?" "I'm not accusing you, I'm merely stating the facts." I shot back, frustration boiling over. "You're the one who has made this mess, and I'm the one left to pick up the pieces. This isn't just about you anymore." There was silence, a heavy pause where the air felt thick with unspoken words. She turned away, and I could see the wheels in her mind turning. I realized I had reached an impasse. I couldn't force her to be honest if she wasn't ready to face the reality of her actions. As much as I wanted to scream and shake some sense into her, I knew I had to pull back. I needed to think clearly and figure out what this meant for me. "I can't keep doing this, Emily," I said finally, my voice softening as I tried to rein in my emotions. "If you're not willing to acknowledge what's happening between you and Jason, then I'll have to make some hard decisions. I deserve a partner who respects our commitment." She hesitated, and for a split second I thought she might reach out, that maybe she would see the hurt in my eyes and feel any sense of remorse. But instead she turned her back to me, the distance between us growing even wider. "Maybe you do need to think about what you want, Jason," she said dismissively. "But I'm not going to live in a prison of your jealousy and suspicion." I felt my heart sink at her words. It was clear to me now. She was unwilling to fight for our marriage. The betrayal had transformed her into something I didn't recognize, someone who was ready to rewrite our history with a flimsy excuse. The reality of losing her was devastating, but I couldn't ignore the fact that she was already lost to me. That night, I made my decision. I wouldn't let this situation consume me, even if it hurt like hell. I would begin to reclaim my life, my sense of self, and my dignity. I started to think about what life would look like without Emily and how deep this betrayal had cut. What would my future hold? Would I really walk away from the years we had spent together, or would I try to salvage whatever was left? I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew I had to be strong. I needed to take control of my narrative to ensure that I would be the one left behind in this emotional tempest. I'd have to prepare myself for the inevitable fallout, but I was determined to face it head on. Whatever choice I made, it would be for me. And amid the chaos, I felt a flicker of hope that I could rebuild my life, one step at a time. The days that followed my confrontation with Emily felt surreal, almost like I was moving through life in slow motion. I had made a choice. I wouldn't let her betrayal destroy me. Instead of falling apart, I was determined to focus on my own healing, my own journey. I began to set boundaries, to protect myself emotionally while also preparing for whatever decision lay ahead. I started by talking to friends, sharing my situation with a few I trusted. It felt good to have their support, to hear them validate my feelings. They were shocked when I told them about Emily's infidelity, but I also sensed their concern for my well-being. "You deserve better than this, Jason," one of my closest friends, Mike, said. "You shouldn't have to fight for someone who's not fighting for you." His words resonated deeply. I started to realize that I had been so focused on salvaging our marriage that I had ignored the most important relationship in my life, the one with myself. I needed to prioritize my own happiness and well-being, a concept that had felt selfish in the past but now seemed like a necessary step. During this time, Emily and I had transitioned into a kind of cold war. She continued to live in the house, but the intimacy that had once defined our relationship had vanished. We were like two strangers cohabiting the same space, our interactions confined to terse exchanges about household responsibilities. I could see the frustration boiling beneath the surface when we were together, and I was grateful for the distance. Each awkward moment felt like a reminder that I was reclaiming my power. But that didn't mean I was immune to the heartache. There were moments when I would come home to find her on the couch, laughing with her friends on a video call. The sound of her laughter would claw at my insides, and I'd have to remind myself that it was no longer my laughter to cherish. It was painful to know she was moving on while I was still grappling with the betrayal, but I had to remind myself, this was her choice, not mine. As the weeks went by, I focused on my own interests. I reconnected with hobbies I had neglected over the years. I picked up my old guitar, started running again, and even signed up for a cooking class. Each time I engaged in something I loved, I felt a little lighter. I was beginning to feel like myself again, even if the emptiness of the house echoed with what once was. But there was a lingering question in the back of my mind. Would I confront Emily again? Would we have a conversation that could potentially bring some closure, or was I better off letting the past fade into the background? I decided that I needed one more discussion, one final attempt to see if there was anything left worth salvaging. One night, after she returned home from work, I asked her to sit down with me. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral despite the anxiety bubbling within me. "About what?" she asked, her voice flat as she sat down. I could see her walls go up instantly. "I want to know if you're willing to be honest with me now," I started, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You've been living here like everything is fine, but we both know that's not the case. I need clarity on what happened between you and Jason and what you want moving forward. Is this worth saving?" She sighed, crossing her arms defensively. "I've already told you it was nothing, Jason. A mistake that I regret. I didn't think you would take it this seriously." I shook my head, feeling the frustration rise again. "You didn't think I'd take it seriously. You decided to cheat on me, Emily. You broke my trust. How could you not think that would have consequences?" Her eyes flashed with annoyance. "You keep acting like I'm the villain here. You're not innocent in this. You've neglected me for years. You've been so focused on work and your own life that I felt like I was living alone. I didn't seek out this affair, it just happened." "Neglected you?" I echoed incredulously. "Emily, I worked hard to build a life for us, I thought. That was what we wanted. I thought you were happy." She opened her mouth, but the words didn't come. I could see her reflecting on my statement, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she would realize the gravity of her actions. But then she leaned back, shaking her head. Maybe I was looking for something more, but that doesn't justify how you're treating me now, she said, her voice colder than before. You have to give me some time to figure things out. Time. You've had time, Emily. I've given you weeks to think about things, and all I've gotten in return is silence and avoidance, I replied, feeling the cracks in my composure widen. I'm not asking for perfection, but I need to know if you're willing to fight for us or if you're just comfortable living in this limbo. I don't know, Jason. I really don't, she said, frustration leaking into her voice. It's not that simple. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of our conversation settling heavy on my chest. You have to decide. Either you fight for this relationship, or we need to face the reality that we're both wasting our time. I can't keep doing this if you're not in it too. For a moment, the air hung thick with unspoken possibilities. I was terrified of the answer, but I knew I had to stand firm in my conviction. I needed to know if there was any hope left for us or if it was time to say goodbye to the woman I once loved. Finally, Emily looked away, her gaze fixed on something distant. I need space to think, Jason. I can't make that decision right now. The finality in her words felt like a door slamming shut, echoing in the emptiness of our home. I nodded slowly, feeling a mixture of relief and heartbreak. I had asked for clarity, and perhaps I had found it in the very absence of it. While I still had love for her, I realized I couldn't continue to hold on to the hope of a relationship that might never return. The painful truth was that sometimes love wasn't enough to keep two people together, especially when one had already stepped away. As she walked away, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders and the reality of my situation wash over me. I had to start thinking about my own future, about what my life looked like without her. It was time to prioritize my own healing, my own happiness, and it was time to prepare for the next step, whatever that might be. I knew I had reached a turning point, and I was determined to move forward, one step at a time. In the weeks following that tense conversation with Emily, I focused intently on rebuilding my life outside of the shattered remains of our marriage. The emotional roller coaster was exhausting, but I felt a newfound strength that I hadn't experienced in a long time. It was liberating, almost like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't just moving forward, I was reclaiming my identity. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the routine and structure that my job provided. I began to excel in ways I hadn't before, receiving praise from my boss that boosted my confidence. It was as if the focus I had once reserved for Emily was now redirected toward my career goals, and it felt good. I was making strides, gaining recognition and feeling accomplished. But there were still moments when the loneliness crept back in. I'd come home to a quiet house, filled with echoes of laughter that had once resonated between us, and I found myself longing for companionship. I started to hang out more with my friends, particularly Mike. He was a constant support system, encouraging me to get out and meet new people. One Friday night, he convinced me to join him and some of his friends for drinks at a local bar. I was hesitant at first, still grappling with the idea of being around couples or people who seemed to have their lives figured out while I was still in turmoil. But Mike insisted, "You've got to get out more, man. It will do you good. Just come and have fun." So I went. The bar was lively, filled with laughter and chatter, and as the night wore on, I found myself loosening up. We played darts, cracked jokes, and I even flirted a little with a girl named Sarah, who had an infectious laugh and a warm smile. There was something exhilarating about it, feeling wanted again, even if it was just a fleeting moment of connection. I hadn't realized how much I missed that feeling. As the night progressed, I felt a sense of freedom that I hadn't felt in ages. I could feel the shadows of my past fading, even if only for a moment. It was refreshing to laugh, to engage with others without the constant weight of betrayal hanging over me. But as I looked around, I couldn't help but think of Emily. I wondered what she was doing, if she was alone, or if she had found solace in Jason's arms. When I got home that night, I felt a mixture of exhilaration and guilt. I had enjoyed myself, and I realized I was starting to move on. But that didn't mean I was entirely ready to let go of the hurt she had caused. I still had to process the betrayal fully, and I knew that healing wasn't a linear path. In the days that followed, I continued to explore new social circles, meeting more people, and gradually opening myself up to the idea of dating again. I wasn't rushing into anything serious, but I was learning how to appreciate life outside of my relationship with Emily. I could feel the happiness creeping back into my heart, and it was intoxicating. One afternoon, as I was out running errands, I bumped into Emily at a coffee shop. She looked startled to see me, her expression a mix of surprise and unease. It had been a while since we'd had any meaningful interaction, and the tension between us was palpable. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my tone casual though my heart raced at the encounter. "Hey," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She fidgeted with her coffee cup, avoiding eye contact. "How have you been?" "I've been good, actually, keeping busy," I said, forcing a smile. "How about you?" "Same," she said, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her tone, "just trying to figure things out." I nodded, knowing all too well what she meant. There was so much left unsaid, and I could feel the walls we had built around our hearts. "I've been seeing a few friends more, going out. It's been refreshing." Her eyes flickered with something. Was it jealousy or regret? I couldn't quite tell, but I pressed on. "I think it's important for both of us to find our own paths now." "Yeah," she said quietly, almost as if she were conceding to a truth she hadn't wanted to face. "I mean, maybe it's for the best." The air was thick with unspoken words, and I felt a pang of sadness for the relationship we had once cherished, but it was quickly overtaken by a sense of resolve. "Emily," I began, searching for the right words, "I know this has been hard on both of us, but I can't pretend that everything is okay. I want to move forward, and I hope you can find what you're looking for too." Her gaze finally met mine, and in that moment I saw a flicker of vulnerability. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Jason," she said softly. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I know I messed up. I just don't know how to fix it. I appreciate that, but I think it's too late for us to go back to what we had. Trust is shattered, and I can't keep living in this limbo," I replied, my voice steady. "I hope you find happiness even if it's not with me." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I understand, I really do." In that moment I felt an unexpected sense of closure. It was bittersweet, but it was necessary. I realized that I didn't want to carry the weight of our past any longer. I was ready to let go, not just of Emily, but of the pain she had caused me. As we parted ways, I felt lighter. I had faced the woman I had loved, and while it hadn't been easy, I felt a sense of empowerment. I was no longer a victim of my circumstances. I was moving forward, one day at a time. I was on the path to healing, ready to embrace whatever came next, whether it was love or a newfound independence. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I was determined to walk it with my head held high, ready to embrace the next chapter of my life, whatever it may hold. After my encounter with Emily at the coffee shop, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. It was as if I had finally allowed myself to grieve the relationship in a way that I hadn't been able to before. The closure I had sought was now within reach, and it felt liberating. I was ready to move on, to embrace a future that didn't include the shadows of betrayal and pain that had haunted me for so long. Over the next few weeks, I poured my energy into the things that brought me joy. I re-engaged with old hobbies, spent more time with friends, and even started seeing Sarah from the bar again. It wasn't serious, but we enjoyed each other's company, and it was refreshing not to carry the weight of my past into new experiences. I found myself laughing more, feeling lighter each day as I took steps toward healing. One Saturday, I decided to take a trip to the beach. The sun was shining, the waves were crashing, and I felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over me. As I walked along the shore, I reflected on everything that had happened, the heartbreak, the anger, and the eventual acceptance. I had learned so much about myself through this tumultuous journey. I had discovered resilience I didn't know I possessed, and I was proud of how far I had come. While I walked, I thought about Emily and the life we had built together. I remembered the good moments, the laughter, and the love we once shared. But I also reminded myself why I had to let that go. It wasn't just the affair, it was the loss of trust, the feeling of being alone in a relationship where I had invested so much. I realized that I deserved a partner who would cherish and respect me, and I was determined not to settle for anything less. As I soaked in the sun, I decided it was time to take the final step. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, typing a message to Emily. It was simple but profound, a way to encapsulate everything I had processed over the past weeks. Hey, Emily, I just wanted to let you know that I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I've come to terms with everything that happened between us. I wish you well and hope you find happiness, but I think it's best for us to officially part ways. I need to focus on my own healing and moving forward. Take care. I hit send and watched the waves roll in, feeling the tension that had been knotted in my chest begin to unravel. I knew that this message wouldn't magically erase the pain, but it was a step towards closing that chapter of my life. As the day went on, I felt a sense of freedom enveloping me. I returned home that evening and opened a bottle of wine, inviting a few friends over. We laughed, shared stories, and celebrated the little victories I had achieved. It was a reminder that life goes on, and there were still so many beautiful moments to embrace. In the days that followed, I received a response from Emily. It was a heartfelt message, full of regret and acknowledgement of her mistakes. She thanked me for the memories and expressed hope for both of us to find happiness in our own ways. I felt a sense of closure wash over me once more. I didn't need to hold on to anger or resentment. I could let it all go. As I navigated this new chapter, I embraced the lessons I had learned. I realized that I could love again, but I wouldn't rush into anything until I was ready. I had to guard my heart and ensure that whoever I welcomed into my life would respect the love and trust I had to offer. Months passed, and while the journey wasn't always easy, I found strength in my independence. I grew closer to friends and family, rebuilding those relationships that had taken a backseat during my marriage. I also found myself exploring new interests, traveling, and even taking up yoga to center my mind and body. Through it all, I retained a sense of hope. I learned that love could be complicated but also beautiful in its own right. I would eventually find someone who appreciated the depths of my heart and cherished the honesty that I had come to value above all else. Looking back, I could see how the experience had transformed me. I was no longer the same person I had been when Emily and I first met. I had grown, I had healed, and I had learned to prioritize my own happiness. The betrayal had been painful, but it had also paved the way for a brighter future. As I sat on my balcony one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant colors, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Life was unpredictable, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next with open arms. I had learned that while love could sometimes break us, it could also lead us toward a path of healing and self-discovery. And with that realization, I welcomed the dawn of new beginnings, ready to write the next chapter of my life.